Hello? Hello? Okay? All right. Thank you very much. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, can I have your attention? Thank you for attending our session, Low Latency Connectivity and Enabling Digitalization, Decarbonization, and Data Usage. We have an excellent lineup of industry expert speakers from satellite surface company to equipment makers, as well as end users who also uses that surface. And if I may ask the speakers, honorable speakers, to come on stage, please. Desipina Banayutu from Tothrio Maritime, Ben Balmer from Inmarsat, Nabil from IEC, and Chris Vidat from BNO Maritime Logistics. Okay. It's been a very busy 2 days of debate and discussions, and of course, we all know what is the main subject of discussion and debate, of course, is decarbonization and what's coming in the future, how it's going to impact us. However, what we know as well, that we have the two big Ds, that is decarbonization and digitalization. These are the two big catalysts for the industry to reach its strategy for decarbonizing the maritime industry. And in once said is that if you are in a discussion and you talk without data, then you are only giving your opinion. You're in fact not giving any benefit other than voicing. And unfortunately, you may agree, you sit in a lot of meeting rooms and a lot of debates and a lot of discussions, and that's actually the current stage where we are in the opinion making. Still did not move into the decision making. Now the decision making is taking a different, let's say, speed and area of discussion. However, when it comes into data, data is based on all these inputs that needs to come from the source. And the source has to have the right equipment to measure, and then for it to be transmitted from the asset ashore to, from offshore to onshore. And then, of course, you can imagine the connectivity in between. And then, in this regard, that's where we have lined up our esteemed speakers, and where we have satellites owners, and then we have equipment makers, and then we have end users on this panel. And if I may ask our speakers first to just to give a brief introduction about themselves, and I start with your good self, Desipina.
Thank you. and thank you for the opportunity to be here with everyone. My name is Despina Panagiotou Theodosiou. I'm based out of Cyprus, and I'm co-CEO of Dorotheo Maritime, which is a group of companies that deals with satellite maritime communications, digital solutions, but also some more traditional maritime services like selling and installing and maintaining bridge equipment. And on my other hat, it has to do with sustainability and energy. I'm the chairperson of the Electricity Authority of Cyprus. So I think having a view, a cross-sector view, helps a lot with maritime as well.
Excellent. Welcome on board. Ben, please.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. My name's Ben Palmer. I run the maritime piece of a satellite communications provider called Inmarsat, based out of the UK, a global business, but headquartered in the United Kingdom. Inmarsat's been at the heart, really, of the maritime safety enterprise since its inception 40 years ago, and I guess has bloomed and prospered with the support of partners like Despina's business into a global leader in satellite communications, secure, global, mobile, resilient, reliable satellite communications, and is a real leading player in providing these services to the global maritime community.
Nabil, please.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Nabil. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer of IC Telecom Group, which is a satellite service operator providing satellite communication everywhere around the world with a presence in 8 countries, including 30 years already presence in the UAE.
Chris, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Chris Vedat. I'm the Head of Technology and Logistics for P&O Maritime Logistics. And I'm actually a consumer of the services that we're going to be discussing today. P&O Maritime is a very traditional marine company, about over 180 years old, and we predominantly work in 3 sectors: the oil and gas industry, the offshore area, where we're servicing our clients in the oil and gas industry; the port services division, where we have about 300 vessels servicing the terminal operators around the world; and our cargo and logistics division, which I also head up as well, where we're providing cargo and logistics services to our oil and gas clients.
So the way we're going to do this now, we want to talk to the satellite owners, if it's okay, and then we will go to the equipment owner, and then we will go into the end users. So then you have enough to attack them with.
Fair enough.
I mean,
That's the kind of battle I like.
Yeah. I mean, in my experience, Ben, I used to pay an equivalent to $20 to $30 a minute when I want to make a phone call.
Yeah.
And it goes back into the 1994, where my first son was born. And then I was sailing as a 3rd engineer on board that ship. And then, of course, when the wife delivered, she was in the UK, I got a telex message came to the ship and to say, you know, call home, wife delivered, she's safe, baby, whatever, so on. So then I had to call my father-in-law in Newcastle, and then asking about how's everybody, everything is good. And then he's saying, I need a name. It's a baby boy. And we were thinking it's a girl, because we bought everything for a girl, Layla. Wow. So this guy now is a boy. So then we had to go and call my father. So I closed the phone after 10 minutes speaking to him, speak to my father in Kuwait, and my father had a name. But it's a very difficult name. So then after trying to convince him, which I failed big time, then I had to go back and speak to Jim back in Newcastle. So the 10 minutes here and 10 minutes here, and then back to Jim. So so 30 minutes times $30 almost. Okay. So that is the bill which I had to pay then. So we will come to the cost. However, going into...
Where's this going?
Yeah. Give us your view, Ben, about how your company will be enabling digitalization, decarbonization, and data usage.
Well, thanks. You could always have asked your father to speak to your father-in-law and cut out the middleman, and that might have been a more efficient way of naming your son. But life's about human stories like that, isn't it? And I think at the heart of the shipping enterprise if anything, that we've learned over the last few years, it's about people, and they really matter. And so actually it's a really appropriate way to introduce our discussion. I think about our role as, historically it's been about three things. It's been about facilitating the safe and secure operation of vessels on the high seas. That's how we started out, that's our DNA. And that actually talks, yes, of course, to the safety of the vessel and the safety of the cargo, but it talks absolutely to the safety of the human beings that put to sea to deliver 90% of the world's trade. I think about connectivity as an essential enabler of the safe and effective operation of the vessel, increasingly the efficient and competitive advantage driving operation of the vessel in what is a competitive industry. And the extent to which the industry and individual companies within it can capture the latent value in the huge amount of data that modern vessels throw off, collect it, distribute it, analyze it, and then turn it into timely decisions which enhance their ability to do their business, I think is an opportunity, I'll just put it that way, that shipping in general has been perhaps slower than some other industries to grasp the value of, not just in terms of cost reduction, although that's very important in a competitive environment, but also in the creation of new use cases and new value drivers. And I think that's, for me, that's the really interesting thing we haven't talked as much about in the digitalization space, is actually creating new revenue streams for shipping companies, for logistics providers, as well as, of course, driving competitive advantage. And the third area, I think, is around crew welfare, broadly defined. Crew are increasingly a driver of competitive advantage for our customers, and having happy, well-motivated, connected crews who, just like we want to be connected, or certainly our children want to be connected 24/7 on about 6 different devices doing 7 different things at once. Increasingly, that's something that ship will. And our network, with our GEO satellites, our Ka-band satellites providing the speed and capacity, and the L-band providing the backup, have proven to be extremely effective providers of all three.
So new technologies, options, how do you find the reaction of the end users?
So I think, I mean, it's a really exciting time to be in our business, not just because demand from our customers is growing. We've seen, there's almost a Moore's law kind of piece to this. The demand expands to fit the available capacity, and we see demand on our networks doubling every 1.5 years, particularly driven by business operations, which have gone up by about 130% over the year, and also by crew welfare, which is driven, crew usage is driving 141% over the last year. That's great. The reality of being in a growing market for which demand is increasing is it attracts new entrants. And isn't it great that certain very famous and very wealthy people want to pour their hard-earned billions into investing to create additional value in this sector? So I think there's a lot of change coming. I welcome that because it's forcing us to think differently about the service we provide. It's forcing us to become more innovative, and it's actually expanding, in my view, the shape and size of the collective pie. And I think our view, to actually answer your question, our view increasingly is the future's about seamless connectivity provided over multi-layer networks through an intelligent, flexible, secure, global, reliable, resilient pipe. And at Inmarsat, that's where we're focusing our investment to deliver that kind of capability over time.
So, Nabil, what is your take on this, and especially on the decarbonization aspect?
Well, I remember in an event like this in Norway, I started my speech by saying that I will fuel your vessels by data. Mm-hmm. That's literally what is happening now, what we are doing. And by increasing the data on board, we reduce the consumption of fuel consumption, but of many other things. So we have to look at what's happening now, not only passing from a few megabit per second to 100 megabit per second plus. That will change nothing if we don't do things differently. So the main thing is, with the data we have, the extra data we have with the now with the highest speed and low latency, you can do much more, but you don't have to keep the same processes. So you have to change the overall way a vessel is managed. Operations are happening, and today decarbonization is mainly on fuel consumption, but also on changing many operations and many ways how things are managed on board the vessel, on fleet management.
Also on the shore side. They also
on both sides,
Yeah,
sides.
so
Even
therefore,
on port sides, I would say also.
this will take me to Dipsina.